Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenny Zell, and I'll be the moderator of today's webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to address how technology can enable financial institutions and how they can differentiate by driving hyper-personalized customer experiences. But before we start, I do have some housekeeping items that I'd like to share with you all. This webinar will be recorded, so we will be sure to send out after. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end with our speakers, so if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to add them to the chat box as we go along. So for today's agenda, we'll go over our introductions. We'll talk about omni-channel digital experiences. Then we'll get to the next generation banking experience solution, and then we'll end with our Q&A. Today's speakers are Stefan Schinkel, our very own Chief Sales Officer, and Lubomir Tumani, Product Manager with Banking Software Company. And with that, I'd like to pass over to Stefan.
Thanks, Jenny, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to talk to you about a topic that is very dear to my heart, digital experiences. And I'm even more excited about the work Banking Software Company has done helping to deliver those digital experiences. You guys are probably all executing on your digital agenda, right? Whether it's optimizing or transforming your business, right? So really pursuing your digital ambition. And what we would like to bring to the table to help you delivering those digital experiences is the content foundation as a service that allows you to build, orchestrate what we call connected, trusted, and continuous customer experiences. Now, this is an abstract of our dotCMS product vision document, which is available upon request. Now, when it comes to delivering digital experiences, there are two aspects that are very crucial, in my opinion. First of all, and already stated in 2016 research by the World Economic Forum and Accenture, is the fact that enterprises can differentiate with digital, right? First of all, focus on the customer experience and not the product and services, right? And this should be in the entire customer journey and not just in the acquisition phase. Secondly, deliver hyper-personalized experiences, right? Without making it creepy, and make sure that you comply with the GDPR and the CCPA in the US. And why is that so important, right? Well, consumers get about 5,000 to 6,000 brand impressions per day, right? So you really have to make sure that you are relevant in every single touch point that you have. The second aspect that I think is important to deliver digital experiences is the need for mobile, right? And a lot of you already have adopted a mobile first strategy. And here are some of the mobile trends for 2020 that are particularly relevant for banking. First of all, the need for ATMs, right? The way that people pay or transfer money is changing really rapidly, right? And in Africa, you see already, a lot of people that actually don't have a bank account but do have a mobile phone because of the high, penetration of mobile phones, right? So there are services already where those people can basically, receive and send money. Secondly, biometric authentication. Well, we obviously seen that already with Face ID on iPhones, right? But that's going to be hugely important as well as we move along. Voice banking, voice-enabled services are not new, but they will definitely make their world to financial services, right? Voice search is already well adopted in the consumer world, and this is definitely a technology that will make its way mainstream in banking services. I AI-driven customer services, again, leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning is making its way mainstream. There's a lot of solutions out there already that will help to support touch points with customers. And some are good and some are bad, but this is definitely a technology that will optimize. And combining these two, I'm super excited about the banking experience solution that the team of BSC has built on top of dotCMS, right? So really a content-driven application for both mobile as well as desktop, combined with some really powerful banking capabilities. But yeah, I think this is a good moment to hand over to Lubomir and to talk you through that solution. Lubomir, please take it away.
Thank you, Stefan, for the nice introduction. And well, my name is Lubomir Tomane. I work for BSC, which is banking software company here in Prague in Middle Europe. And as we already said today, I'm going to talk about dotCMS, about the content management system for banks. So basically, we're going to cover four different topics. The agenda is I'm going to briefly introduce BSC. So just that you know and you have certain idea actually why we are here, what we do, and how do we implement or how do we need content management system in our solution. And then we're gonna see the problem that we were facing, let's say, or the problem that we see or receive from the banks that they have the problem regarding the content management. And then from that we gonna see or cover like the solution that was related to these problems, and then quickly in last part I'm gonna show you two implementations done by the TMS that we tried here internally for our purposes. So let's go for the first slide. Short BSC introduction. Our motto, our slogan is "We make the banks relevant again." And I know it sounds like a big, but we have 30 years experience in that, and I think we can still claim it's true. And this BSC basically focus exclusively only on the on the financial segment. And we have three main lines, but for our webinar today, it's only important the product where I work, which is the Digital Bank OS. That's the platform, it's the omnichannel platform for digital banking. So to make it like, let's say, more understandable, it's pretty much the layer that you put or build on the top of the old core banking systems. So that's the place or the layer where you can develop and present all the new features that are relevant for the millennials, for this age, all the new channels, internet banking, mobile banking, or like a finance management, and etc. So anything that you might find interesting and related to nowadays technology, this is usually in this part. We already, let's say, implemented the solution in more than 50 banks in 19 countries. It's not like that all of these 50 banks have the full Digital Bank OS platform. Some of them, they just take part. Some of them are running on the older previous versions. I would just like here highlight one interesting case, which is the American company Nimbus, our partner company, that actually launched like fully cloud bank as a service called Nimbus Bank, and it's based on the BSC Digital Bank OS platform. It's quite interesting. And here in Europe, we have some big players like Citibank, Commerzbank, in Czech Republic, Equa, Raiffeisen Bank, etc. So if we go more to the Eastern Europe, like Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, quite a lot of banks running on Digital Bank OS. So we do have experience, we do talk to the banks, and we try to tackle the problems of the life, let's say, of typical bank. And this is also what is represented here in this business architecture. This is what we see that is covering the normal business business scope of a bank. We are not going into much detail because this will be then really long and pretty boring webinar. So I'm just going to go to two main issues here. We are talking about business architecture. We can see here digital identity, that's maybe authentication, services, etc. But then we here also see the customer empathy and the customer journeys. And those are like a big business topics. The customer empathy, we have tools there. We have various components that are somehow related to data enrichment of the customer. So it could be like a analyzing collection of the customer's behavior, but it's also like a way of communicating with the behavior. We quite often use the word empathic or like empathic banking actually, and this is exactly where it is, where the core of the empathic banking is. It's what we call customer empathy. And so in the case of, let's say, content management, this is for us the part where we create the content. And it's not just creating the content for everybody, but more specifically creating the right content for the right customer of the bank. So different content for corporate segment, different content for retail bank, for maybe a family, or for young single men, or for seniors. So this is part of the customer empathy. And here's where the content is created. And the second part, we have here the customer journeys, and this is also where the content is delivered. So in the customer journeys, we can talk about many things. We usually say that the customer journeys are more complex life situations that are usually spanning over the traditional banking view or point of view. So let's just give you one example. Instead of solving, we call it like user stories. So user story maybe mortgage or loan. We're gonna solve customer journey, which is living. So should the user or should the client rent a house or buy a house? Is it what is cheaper? Can he actually or she afford it, etc. And here again, in like regards of the customer journeys with the content management, this is for us how we're going to deliver the content that we created, that we like polished and that we selected within the customer empathy, how we're going to deliver it to the customer, which tools we're going to use it. So shall we use maybe WhatsApp? Shall we send him email? Or shall we just deliver the content via website or maybe tablet or mobile applications? So these are all possible channels, and we need to make sure that the content is relevant, first of all, but it's also delivered in a proper way. So, and it goes to the third slide. And I know this looks scary, and I promise this is the last heavy slide that I'm showing today. But this also goes to this our, let's say, scheme regarding the functionalities. I'm not going to do any detail here, but this shows some of our components. And as you can see, here is the core banking services that we somehow connect with our layer, which is like the omni-channel or multi-experiences layer. And this is the part which is responsible for the complete, for the magic, what we see, what we think about it. And it's, for example, here can be the one of the component could be the content delivery or content management. And these components, I mean, we have more than 20 components in our platform. Most of them we develop on our own, but with certain components we prefer to actually like take what is on the market, and we are using third parties and we integrate it, and then it's like a part of our solution, let's say. It also depends on what the bank wants. So it might be that the content delivery and content management, it's already solved at the bank and they have certain systems, and so they don't need it. So we do not really force them. But in case that they do want it, we wanted to be prepared, and we wanted to have a solution that we could integrate easily and we could offer to our customers. It's also necessary to mention that all of these components that we have more than 20, they are communicating within each other via REST API. So it's all, let's say, it's like a similar architecture as a microservices architecture. So all of these components, we try to make them separate. It's easier than to actually to manage them, to update them. They can have a different roadmap, they can have different development, and it's also allowing us to go, let's say, to be within the technological requirements of today, like using Kubernetes and Dockerization. So we are also like all of these reasons were like pushing us that a few years ago we went from the monolithical to this component architecture. And then when we have these components and we were thinking about, okay, the content management. So we wanted to deliver this kind of functionality, and we were, let's say, getting the feedback from the banks, what are the problems? So usually from our customers, we think that banks have a lot of various segments. So you have a retail, corporate, SMB, wealth segment. Each segment can be managed, or let's say provided or catered via different channels. So you can have a phone, SMS, desktop, web applications, mobile apps, native mobile apps, web apps, or actually end devices are constantly evolving every day. Nowadays, you can see that the content will be consumed also on the home appliances, such as maybe a washing machine or your fridge or smart assistant. So you can pretty much imagine that in the future, like the content or the information will be transmitted via many, many different channels. And so it's very important, especially for the bank, to always deliver the content in effectively and professional manner. And no matter which device is actually on the other side, and no matter what circumstances, you don't want to duplicate any of these content. And you also need to take into account that banks can have also thousands of pages. So let's say if we talk about a public website, it can be really, really big and complex pages. And you also have a large number of users with different roles within the system. You can have a business people and technical people, developers, testers. You can have a creative people, content creators, architects, etc. And all of them, they need to work in consistency. So you need to make sure that all the content is presented in the same way. So no matter of the device and no matter of the role of the person who actually is creating the content. So in the end, you will probably end up that you need a professional CMS solution, or that was our way. We realized, yeah, we need to have a CMS which will probably answer all of these questions. And we were also like covering three different client-facing scenarios. So the first one is the public website, which is usually like a static content. So you might have there maybe the products, the history of the bank. You have a private zone where you need to already log in, but you still have maybe semi-public information, or also like static information. It could be maybe some predefined or pre-selected stock information for you on your personal investment portal, but where you can only sign in using your Facebook ID or Google ID. And the most restrictive or the most strict is, of course, the internet mobile banking. So that's the place where you can see your balances, your transactions. It's quite dynamic because it's changing all the time. You have different balances every day, and you need to authenticate yourself with a strong methods. So we were searching for a solution for all of these points. And if we actually like translate those problems into concrete requirements while searching for CMS, we end up with following points. So we knew that we want to have on-premise solution. I mean, it's fine to run it in cloud, but the chance or the ability to be on-premise is quite important because the banks are still quite sensible regarding the data and the data management. Most of them, they prefer to have a complete on-site or on-premise solution nowadays still, because they have a overall control about it. You need to have a preview mode, so you want to see the changes in context of the user. how the user will see it as well. And you want to let the people, let's say the less technical people, also to create the content. So this is exactly why would you like to have preview mode, and you want to be able to make a forms, and so form builder was definitely an advantage. What we were trying to do actually, but we never really properly tested, was to create, like, let's say, authentication middleware, so connection to the BSC authentication server. That was one of our requirements as well. We wanted to have under our control, like, the staging process, because we know that in the banks it's important, actually in any organization, it's important to create the hierarchy. So if you might have a creative team, and each team member can create new content, new blog posts, or adjust the product pages, but ultimately maybe it must be approved by the team leader before it's published. And if there are any changes and you want to go back, you want to see when these changes were done and who did them, of course, logging is important. So, like, auditing is definitely also a topic. At the same time, it should be easy to use and intuitive. So once again, the content creators are not technical people, and they don't want to bother with this. And the workflow should be also supported. So there is this 4 eyes principle, which we implement in our solution in terms of, like, or in context of payments usually, or any more complex rules. So we can make sure that any changes or any publications can be equipped with this 4 eyes principle, and there can be approval rules. And most of all, it has to be all headless, because this is simply the way how it's more efficient, the most efficient way. We wanted to separate completely the content from the presentation layer, and this also goes along with the whole architecture of Digital Bank OS, of the platform. As I said, you have multiple components. They somehow communicate with each other, and then in the end, they send the content to the presentation layer, which in our case, it's our front-end framework. And the front-end framework will use the styling of certain given customer. It will use the design system that was specifically made for that customer, and render the presentation, the presentation layer itself. So that's, of course, the principle of the headless CMS. At the same time, you want to have maybe you want to need or you want to have still the coupled CMS for certain cases. Like in our cases, we decided to try our internal pilots on let's say on 2 different cases, on public web and internet banking, and the public web is completely done by dotCMS. So there we use this, let's say, the coupled content management system. And we just created, like, very, very simple pilot projects, let's say proof of concepts, because we wanted to be sure that it works as we expect. And so we created one website of modern retail bank for younger audience. We called it Neobank. The site is completely created and managed by dotCMS server. I'm going to show you in a second how it looks like. Actually, for the design, we ask external agency because it's not our core competency. And it's mostly just showing the static content. So products, history of the bank, that's what I was talking about before. At the same time, we created also, like, internet banking of some incumbent retail bank. We call this BSC bank, where you need to first log in, where you have, like, some dynamic content, so you can have the transactions, various users context. And this is actually the page is delivered by Digital Bank OS, by BSC, and dotCMS in that case only delivers certain part of the content. So it's integrated with the Digital Bank OS. And usually the decision on which content will be shown is done by the component decision engine. So that goes to the back to the one of the first slides when I was showing the customer empathy. So that's exactly one of the components which is responsible for that. So basically this component is saying like, if you meet certain rules and certain criteria, go and show the banner A. And if there is nothing, if there is not met this criteria, show the banner B or C. And you can pretty much program or like define the criteria on your own. So this is the decision engine for our marketing campaigns. And yeah, so we wanted all integrate this and to be able to show this within our BSC bank. So this is also where we employ this headless concept. So basically here in that second case, dotCMS is only delivering the content itself, and all the formatting, all the styling, the coloring, etc., is done by our front-end framework. So how that look in real life? Let's have a look on a demo. I'm going to start first with the public web, just quickly show you the website. So as you can see, very simple page where you can go and scroll through the products. You might have some calculators. You might have some widgets for the social media. You can also add the multilingual support. This was really just about like trying what we can have, and just like playing a little bit with the whole concept of younger audience within BSC and younger bank and so-called neobanks. When we look how the site was done or how it's managed, then I'm gonna skip here to the interface of .cms, and here we're gonna switch to the website of this of our neobank, and we can go to the browser where I pretty much see the what I was just showing, and this is the same. I mean, this is like the normal standard CMS system, so you can edit it. You have like a predefined templates with footers, headers, etc., with all of these benefits that you would expect. So all of the things like a permission history and different workflows can be set here, and the business people can directly edit and publish if they can publish and directly publish the content. So this is the public, let's say, static content. The second case I've been mentioning was the internet banking. And I think this is slightly more interesting, just for you, like very simple, our internal proof of concept. So nothing like super, no rocket science, but just we wanted to have our BSC bank with some content put from .cms. How that looks like. So this is the homepage. If we go here to the, we'll now like refresh. I'm gonna log in. And yeah, this is like the typical content created by Digital Bank OS. But we have already here, we're gonna see some of these, some of the parts that are actually delivered by .cms. So for example, here on the bottom, this is these banners, they are directly, these are like the coupled CMS. So this content of the banner was delivered by .cms, or when we go to the domestic payments, I think, or dashboard. Here we get the same banners. Actually, we can check them directly. It would maybe slightly easier if we go to the content search. And here we got the banners that are later on shown there. And of course, we can directly change them, update them, and the content will also change there. By the way, this one is this was delivered as a headless, so dotCMS really just sent the content itself, only the text, only the picture, but the rendering itself and the styling is done by our front-end framework. So hopefully now this is gonna work, and you should see the change text like here. At the same time, you don't just to have to change. You might want to change other things, and you, as a business in a bank, you want to maybe somehow also adjust the fields or the forms. So here we got like a domestic payment form. It's actually also can be managed by the dotCMS. So we just need to switch to the domestic payment field. And we can set some of the fields that are here. For example, maybe we want to set that the specific symbol, constant symbol, or variable symbol, they will be in the next step, not in the first one. I will decide that from the user experience perspective, it's no longer suitable. So even these kind of changes, they can be changed here. And we're gonna set here the step of the wizard where we wanna have it. So we put it in a second step, second part. We're gonna go save and publish. And now the first step should already, yeah, the field was, it's actually gone. Or we want to completely maybe change some of these, some of the text. So from the dotCMS. So basically what we did, or what you can do also, it's that we render here the content now, some of the content from our own databases, and only part from the CMS. And only first when we set that certain field is populated by the information from the .cms, it will appear here. So in the case of here, the node, I just need to copy the name of the field, which I know it's here. It's the payment domestic wizard node, and then we will go to the content, language dictionary, and we can add here the field, which is called like payments domestic wizard node. Will so it will be here. There will be some other text, so we can maybe here put some node for webinar. And again, when we now publish, it should work and correctly render the information which is now in .cms. So the original data from the database will not be used and will be, let's say, overwritten by the content from the dot.cms. And as you can see, here is now node for the webinar. Also here the help is, for example, it's set, or it's let's say rendered, or it's delivered by .cms. Then that would be some different fields like I help, and you could also switch the language versions if you create them. And this is all done also in .cms. So this was like our very short and brief demo on how we tried it. We tried to work with .cms, the reasons why we chose .cms, and yeah, I hope you like it. If you want to know something more, don't hesitate to ask any questions right now. We have some time, so we can discuss it. But for the webinar, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for these great insights. And now we're going to open up for questions.